All right, so when we talk about aviation safety, it's easy to just picture the pilots in the cockpit, right? But the real story, it's happening behind the scenes, in these huge, complex systems. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the real engine of safety, the resources that fuel an airline's quality management system, or QMS. Because without the right people and the right tools, well, the whole idea of safety literally can't get off the ground.
You know, in most businesses, quality is this great goal you aim for. It's a target. But in aviation, nope, it's the starting line. It is the absolute non-negotiable standard. Every single thing, from how a bolt is tightened to how a meal is served, has to meet these incredibly high standards. Why? Because when you're 35,000 feet in the air, there's just no room for error. Safety and reliability aren't just important, they are everything.
So how on earth do airlines keep that standard up, day in and day out? Well, they do it with something called a quality management system, or QMS. And listen, this is not just some dusty binder of rules sitting on a shelf. Think of it as the living, breathing, operational backbone of the entire airline. It's the rulebook, the playbook, the whole shebang that dictates exactly how everything gets done, making sure every single step is compliant with the super strict regulations.
Okay, so having a framework is one thing, but a system is only as good as what you actually put into it. So that brings up the big question, right? What really fuels a QMS? What are the essential ingredients, the absolute must-haves that an airline needs to make this whole thing work and keep everyone safe?
First up, and this is probably the most important one, people. Now, when we say human resources in the context of an aviation QMS, we are not just talking about headcount or, filling seats on a roster. Not at all. It's about having exactly the right person with proven, documented skills in exactly the right role at all times. No exceptions.
Yeah, the official standards are crystal clear on this. Anyone whose job touches service or safety must be competent. Now that sounds like a simple word, but trust me, in aviation, it is anything but vague. Competent isn't a feeling or an opinion. It's a specific, measurable, and totally auditable definition. So what does it actually break down into?
And here they are, the 4 pillars of competence. This is how the industry demystifies that big idea. First, you've got your education. That's the foundational stuff, your formal qualifications. Then there's training, which is super specific to the procedures and systems you'll be using. Third, you need the skills. Can you actually do the task? And finally, there's experience. You've got to have that time in the real-world environment. You can't have one without the others. And the most important part, every single one of these has to be documented and proven.
Let's make this real. Think about a flight attendant. Their competence isn't just assumed, it's measured. Their required safety certifications, that's their education and training. The languages they speak, their first aid knowledge, how they handle a difficult situation, those are critical skills. And their experience, that's literally measured in flight hours and years on the job. The airline has to be able to pull up a record for any crew member on any flight and prove, without a doubt, that all 4 of those pillars are rock solid.
But here's the thing. Becoming competent is really just the beginning. It's not a one-and-done checkbox you tick off when you're hired. No way. It's a living thing. It has to be constantly maintained, constantly checked, and constantly proven through this really rigorous, never-ending cycle.
So this is what that cycle looks like. First, the airline figures out exactly what skills are needed. Then, if there's a gap, they provide training to fill it. I mean, think about those annual emergency evacuation drills cabin crew have to go through. That's this step in action. But, and this is the part that a lot of people miss, they then have to evaluate if the training actually stuck. Did you learn what you were supposed to learn? And finally, you guessed it, everything gets documented. Every class, every test, every qualification, it all goes into a permanent record that has to be ready for an audit at a moment's notice.
It's funny to think about, but this process used to be, well, a lot simpler. Not that long ago, a training record might have just been a piece of paper. A manager would watch you do something, nod, and sign on the dotted line. Yep, you're competent. The whole system was pretty much built on trust.
Oh, how things have changed. That old trust-based system, it's gone completely. Today, we're talking about a digital, almost forensic-level audit trail. Modern training systems can track every single click, every decision you make in a simulation. They build these dynamic, real-time profiles of your skills. And to make sure nobody can ever cheat the system, the records are secured with cryptography and stored on what are called immutable ledgers. Basically, it means they are tamper-proof and permanent. That simple piece of paper with a signature has been replaced by an unbreakable digital chain of evidence.
Okay, so having incredibly competent people is absolutely essential. But even the best trained person in the world can't do their job without the right tools. And that brings us to the second huge piece of the puzzle:
Infrastructure. We're talking about the physical and digital environment, everything they need to get the job done right.
Here's a really simple way to think about it. If human resources are the who of the operation, then infrastructure is the what and the where. It's the building, the plane, the software, the tools, literally everything. And the QMS says an airline doesn't just have to provide this stuff, they have to actively maintain it to the highest standard.
So let's bring it back to our flight attendant. What's their infrastructure? Well, their workspace is the aircraft cabin and the galleys, right? And their equipment, it's so much more than just the drinks cart. We're talking life-saving emergency gear like oxygen bottles and defibrillators. We're talking about the communication systems to the flight deck, and yes, even those digital tablets they use for passenger service. Every single one of those items is considered critical infrastructure under the QMS.
And this is the key takeaway. A failure of infrastructure is treated just as seriously as a failure of human competence. Think about it. If the software on that service tablet crashes and the crew can't see a passenger's severe allergy information, that's a huge problem. The service has failed. And from the perspective of the QMS, that is a resource management failure. Plain and simple.
All right, so we've covered people and we've covered tools. But this whole field of resource management is changing at lightning speed. Technology isn't just helping us do the old things better. It's completely redefining what we even consider a resource in the first place.
Just look at how training is being revolutionized. We've got airlines using virtual reality, VR, to put cabin crew into these incredibly realistic emergency situations, stuff you could never safely practice in real life. We have artificial intelligence, AI, that builds custom-made learning paths for each person. And what about when your most experienced people are about to retire? Now we can build digital libraries to capture all that priceless knowledge before it walks out the door. It's amazing.
But maybe the biggest game changer of all is this. We now see data itself as a critical resource. Think about it. Airlines are swimming in data, and they're using it for predictive maintenance. Basically, using data to fix a part before it fails. In the nerve center of the airline, these high-tech control centers pull in all this real-time data to make smarter, faster decisions. They're even using super advanced analytics to solve mind-bendingly complex puzzles, like how to create the most efficient flight routes and crew schedules.
So this all leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about as we look to the future. As all this amazing technology gets woven deeper and deeper into every part of aviation, what becomes the most critical resource? Is it the powerful AI? Is it the oceans of data? Or is it still, and will it always be, that expertly trained, will-supported human being right at the center of everything, making the final critical decision? Something to think about.